Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I keep you up to date with all of the latest news in the game industry, and I hope everybody had a good and safe weekend. I myself have been playing a lot of Yakuza 0 on Xbox Game Pass, and that truly is an amazing game, so I'd highly recommend it if you haven't played that already. With that said though, we have a lot of news to talk about today, including ESA's plans for E3. As we know by this point, E3 was cancelled, or at least the physical version of E3 has been cancelled, but what is ESA's plans going forward? So we're going to talk about that, plus the Resident Evil 3 remake just came out, but Capcom may be preparing to remake more Resident Evil games going forward, and we will likely see some Xbox Series X as well as PlayStation 5 games come over to the Nintendo Switch, and no, you did not hear that wrong, so stay tuned for all of that as well. First though, let's go over some of the quick stuff, and right away, Xbox has officially announced a new Inside Xbox episode, which will be airing tomorrow on April 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. This will primarily focus on first-party games from what it sounds like. They will be talking about Obsidian's upcoming game, Grounded, as well as Sea of Thieves and Gears Tactics. And for me, Gears Tactics is definitely the one here to watch out for. Gears is actually probably my favorite franchise to ever be made, so I'm excited to see what Gears in a new format will look like and play like. I do think Gears Tactics looks really good, so I'll be looking forward to hearing more about that one. Now, they did say that there will be some new surprises as well from ID at Xbox, which of course is their independent Xbox label, meaning that we should see some new independent games at this show, or at least that's how I'm reading into it. They will also be talking about Xbox Game Pass, so we're probably going to see the first wave of April's games on Xbox Game Pass, as well as a technical dive into the Xbox Series X. Of course, we've already seen the specs, but now they're probably going to talk a little bit more in depth to what these specs actually mean. This Inside Xbox episode is supposed to be roughly 40 minutes long, which seems like a good time here. Inside Xbox in the past has had a tendency of being a little bit bloated, but maybe they learn from that and are going to try and make it a little bit more tighter and just a more condensed experience. I've said this in the past, but I'm not really a big fan of Inside Xbox, or at least its format, so hopefully they can improve on what they've done, and I guess we'll find out soon. I mean, so far it sounds really good on paper, so let's just wait and see. Again, this starts tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on April 7th. Now, speaking of Xbox, we do have some good news for you Astro headphone users out there. When the Xbox Series X was shown, there has been one little detail that has left some concern for a select few users, and that is the fact that Xbox Series X does not have an optical audio port, which some headphones do use to function on Xbox. Now, Phil Spencer talked about this last week on IGN's Xbox Unlocked podcast, and he said he has talked with third parties about this. Well, right after that, Astro took to Twitter to reveal their solution on the matter, and that they will be rolling out a firmware update for some of their headsets to include USB capability, removing the need for an optical audio port. That's really good to hear, so Astro users will not have to buy a new headset for their Xbox Series X. I actually do suspect that we will be seeing more of this from other companies as well as we head into next generation, and even though not many people use the optical audio port on Xbox One, as Phil Spencer noted last week, it's still nice to see these companies try to help out their fans. Moving on though, we have a few games to talk about now, starting off with Hideo Kojima's next game. There have been some rumors floating around about his next game and what it could possibly be. Mostly based off speculation, but yeah, it's widely believed that he is looking to make a horror game. Well, Hideo Kojima is certainly not squashing any of those rumors anytime soon, because when BAFTA asked about this, Hideo Kojima had this to say. PT ended as just an experiment, but I would like to make another horror game someday. Something that uses a revolutionary method to create terror that doesn't just make you pee your pants, but crap them. I already have ideas in mind. So once again, it sounds as if Hideo Kojima truly does want to do a horror game, and now that he is free from Death Stranding, I think this is starting to look like a real possibility. And that's the thing, because people loved PT, and it just unfortunately got canceled by Konami. And when I say people loved it, I mean they absolutely loved that game, so that game is always going to be viewed as a what-if game. What would it have been like? What if it actually got released? Would it have been successful? But maybe it is possible for Kojima to return to that creative process and put out his take on the horror genre. I myself am not really big into horror games, but I know this has to be exciting for those who are, and I do really like Hideo Kojima a lot, so I'll be optimistic about anything that he puts out. And, I'll try it. I'm a big scaredy cat, so it's hard for me to play these games, but, I'll at least try it if Hideo Kojima does go back into that. Let me ask you, though, would you be excited if Hideo Kojima once again returned to the horror genre? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, do you remember that competitive first-person shooter game that the League of Legends developers Riot Games was working on? Yeah, that game Valorant that looks like a mix between Overwatch and Counter-Strike? Well, Valorant will be getting a closed beta starting tomorrow on April 7th, but the way that you enter this beta is a bit odd. You will need both a Twitch account as well as a Riot Games account. Once you have both of those, you must link the two together and then start watching highlighted Valorant streams on Twitch for a chance to get an invite for this beta. Now do keep in mind that it's only a chance and you have no guarantee to get an invite, but it seems like Riot Games is kind of mixing a marketing strategy here with the beta in order to pique fans' interest in Valorant. Nonetheless, even if it is an odd strategy, if you're interested in Valorant and you want to play it, you might want to go sign up for everything you need today and link your accounts and prepare to start watching those streams tomorrow. Now, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's talk about E3 because there has been some interesting developments with E3 over the weekend. The physical version of E3 was canceled, and when ESA decided to do that, they did note that they want to have some kind of digital replacement for E3 this year. But at the time, we didn't really know what those plans were and how many publishers would actually agree to whatever ESA was deciding to do. Well, ESA did announce the official dates for E3 coming next year, which will take place from June 15th to the 17th in 2021, and they're still not completely being forthcoming about what to expect and are just simply saying it will be a reimagined E3. What about this year, though? And now, there is actually more to this story because a journalist by the name of Mike Futter is claiming that ESA has canceled the digital distribution of E3 for this year and made a last-ditch effort to woo publishers for E3, and they just said no. So, what is happening here exactly? Well, once again, there still is more to this story because IGN basically announced their own version of E3, Summer of Gaming, which will be taking place sometime this June. There are no specific dates on exactly when just yet, but several partners have already been announced, including 2K Games, Square Enix, Sega, Namco Bandai, Google Stadia, Twitter, Devolver Digital, THQ Nordic, and more. So pretty much most of the big third-party publishers have already been announced for this IGN E3 replacement. Now, there are a few names that are clearly absent here from that list, including Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, EA, and Activision. Now, it is possible that some of those may still be partnering up with E3 if it hasn't been canceled yet. I mean, there is no official confirmation on that just yet, but they could just do their own digital conferences as well. And really, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think it's really going to matter too much on whether a company partners up with ESA, IGN, or just completely does their own stream. At the end of the day, fans just want to see good games. And sure, E3 is really great for having most of the industry show their big games during 1 week of the year. And hey, maybe those announcements will be a little bit more spread out this year than what we're used to, and we may have an entire month worth of announcements, but hey, that just means we can cover each convention a little bit better. So yeah, it may be a little different this year, but I think we still have a lot to look forward to, whether that be the IGN E3 replacement, a reimagined E3 by ESA if it even happens, or each of the big three doing their own digital events like Nintendo Direct. You still have State of Play and Inside Xbox. I'm just looking forward to the game announcements, but let me know what your thoughts are on all of this. I mean, if this is true and that E3 has been canceled for this year, it's not looking good for the future of E3. Luckily, IGN has replaced it. And, I expect Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation, they'll probably do their own digital events if this is true, so I don't think it's going to be a major loss for the industry. Moving on though, let's go over those Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 games coming over to the Switch. As we all know by this point, the Switch is a little bit outclassed in terms of raw power in comparison to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, so thinking that some big games for those could come over to the Switch almost seems impossible. Well, Virtuous Games may feel completely different. If you don't know who Virtuous Games are, they have a bit of a reputation for porting some of these bigger games over to the Switch. Virtuous Games have so far ported Dark Souls Remastered to the Switch and are bringing both the Outer Worlds as well as the BioShock Collection to the Switch, but Virtuous Games seems to be looking for a bit more of a challenge as they set their marker on next generation. They actually seem fairly sure that they will be able to adapt to the newer technology and port some of these games to the Switch as well. Now keep in mind that this will be a game-by-game basis, and so far we haven't really seen a lot of new games be ported over to the Switch. The Outer Worlds is, I think, going to be the one that we can tell the most from because, well, Dark Souls Remastered as well as the BioShock Collection are fairly old games. The Outer Worlds, though, is going to be the one that I think could end up being their most impressive work, though even then, the Outer Worlds is still just a AA game and not necessarily a big budget AAA game. Even then, though, we are seeing some of these games be ported over to the Switch as well. The Witcher 3 is a prime example of this and somehow managed to do it, and even if it's not as visually appealing as the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 version, it's still very impressive in its own right, and it made its way over to the Switch. And, I keep saying this, but I think that there is a lot of people that are willing to sacrifice visual fidelity for a handheld experience, and that's the big draw for having these type of games on the Switch. And because of that, I do hope Virtuous Games manages to bring over some good Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 ports. Now, I don't think we should come away expecting some of these huge AAA games to come over to the Switch, but, we could end up seeing some of these AA games ported over, hopefully. But really, the more games, the better. I mean, we'll see how this all works out, but Virtuous does seem confident of bringing some Series X and PlayStation 5 games to the Switch. And now the last thing I want to talk about is Resident Evil, and we have two quick things to go over here. The first of which is coming directly from Capcom themselves, as they are sending out a survey asking if fans would like more Resident Evil remakes. Now that doesn't necessarily mean Capcom will for sure make more Resident Evil remakes, but it does however show that they are at least interested in doing more. So could it be possible for them to do a Resident Evil 4 remake? The thing is, Resident Evil 4 HD actually holds up incredibly well even today. It is a phenomenal game, but I have to admit, I would still like to see it get remade. I think Capcom has done a phenomenal job with the Resident Evil remakes so far, and even though Resident Evil 3 could have possibly been a little bit better, I still think it's a great game, and the engine for these games look fantastic as well, so I would be happy to see what Resident Evil 4 could look like in this engine. What about you though? Would you like to see more Resident Evil games be remade, and if so, which game would you like to see get a remake? Now, as I said, there is more Resident Evil news because the Video Game Chronicles has now verified what insider Dust Golem has been saying, and that there will indeed be a new Resident Evil game coming in 2021, which he describes as the biggest departure for the Resident Evil franchise ever. VGC has plenty of great sources as well, and they are verifying his information here, and says that it will be set in a first-person view similar to Resident Evil 7, and Ethan Winters will also be the protagonist, and some of the enemies will be based on mythical creatures like werewolves. So all those leaks I keep talking about on the channel seems to be accurate so far. Right now I'm referring to this game as Resident Medieval, and even though it's supposed to be quite a bit different than the other Resident Evil games, I'm really excited to see what they have for us in 2021, and Dust Golem says that, it has good feedback, so hopefully that's true. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Peace out.